Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I am live in San Francisco, California. I come to you from nerdrotic.com, and down in San Diego, my injured co-host, Dennis Bithoulkas. What's up, man?
Other than the torn calf muscle that I've got and crutches, nothing much.
I don't think it'll keep you from podcasting. Actually, It looks like we might be doing some more. Doesn't require any running. Well,
Yes.
not yet anyway. So, here we are with Stranger Things has returned. A lot of people were calling in Strange today. And I watched 4 episodes while I was working today. So I was like, I just want to check it out for like 15 minutes or so on a break. And I ended up keeping my phone on for 4 hours. So got my job done. So that's good. I've been doing it for a long time. So
I honestly could have streamed it in the urgent care when I was sitting there for the 3 hours I was in urgent care. And
well, I am so glad this show is back. And, I didn't have any worry at all. And my expectations were tempered on this thing. Like the quality of the first season was so good that I had full confidence that this just would not suck. And by the way, we're going to talk. We were musing right before we started this podcast in our very long pre-production meeting. I think it was 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep.
We weren't sure how we're going to do this. I'm not a big fan for selfish reasons for recapping of Netflix dropping all of their episodes at once. I think in a lot of cases it hurts the show. It just gets it out of your mind. But Stranger Things is a different thing. It is phenomenal. So, and it's really kind of I think it's their biggest show right now. And it's just, everybody loves it who sees it. So I think, you can get away with it. I still would prefer the weekly episode or every few days just so we could recap about it. But we have decided, we outvoted John 2-1 on our podcast. We are going to be recapping every episode. Okay. So in the past, we had just done like 1 podcast for the whole season or 2. And it just doesn't feel like you can get into detail with that one. Plus it didn't get a lot of love on our station. So we recently with the Tick decided to do all 6 episodes. Now we didn't get a ton of views, but we had a ton of fun doing it. Yep. And the few people who did watched it really enjoyed it. And we got a lot of, got a lot of praise or a little bit of praise from it. And it encouraged us to do this way. So we will be doing every episode. We'll probably drop one every 3 days. We're not going to take a month like we did with the Tick. We'll do this one in a week or 2. So
okay. I remember you were very hesitant about watching season 1.
I was.
Yeah. And so you've come around now. You've drunk the Kool-Aid.
I told you I came around after I saw the first season. I just, what? I don't know. I had an aversion from the people who were telling me to watch the show. I wasn't entirely, and not you, but the others were. I wasn't trusting of their taste. Okay, I'm like, it might not be. Just it doesn't look like but I didn't really understand what it was. And then when I finally saw it, that it's basically every 80s movie that you and I loved and a lot of other people loved, excuse me, wrapped into one. I mean, they wrapped in 5 movies that I love in this one. So, it's the obvious ones. It was a little bit of Alien. It was a little bit of Firestarter. It's a lot of Firestarter, actually.
Yeah, it's a lot of Firestarter,
which wasn't the biggest hit when it came out, but I loved it. It's basically all your genre movies from the 80s with every Stephen King movie that was good. It's got Dead Zone in it. The only one it's got a little Christine because of the music. It's got a very John Carpenter soundtrack.
It's got the John Carpenter soundtrack, definitely. It's got the synth pop,
yeah, and then it's got Poltergeist, which to this day is my favorite horror movie. It's a PG horror movie, but I still love it.
It even has a little Halloween in there as well.
Oh, totally. And this episode will start. It had Children of the Corn in it too, and just walking through the cornfield. But so briefly, we recap. We all know that that Elle defeated the. Oh my God, what's the name of the monster again?
Oh God, the org? No.
No. God, man, you're supposed to be my detail guy. I am horrible with names, folks. So sorry. So Elle, we had Papa, who was played by Matthew Modine. He was killed at the end. Elle saved the day, saved the kids, but sacrificed herself. And we didn't see her.
The Demogorgon.
Okay, so the Demogorgon. So she defeated that. See, I am not a D&D guy, so sorry. All my friends were though, and she defeated him, and she disappeared. Now, and Will came back. We found Will, but Will came back and he puked up like a little slug. So we knew something wasn't quite right with Will. So they must have had a lot of confidence in this series, because they left us on a slight cliffhanger. And Hop had left the Eggos out for Elle, and we just kind of I assumed anyway, that Elle would come back in some form or another. And we will get into that, because now again, we're only talking about the first episode here. So
Chapter 1, MADMAX.
If we tiptoe across to the second one, I apologize. That'll mainly be me, and I'll try to reel myself in.
I haven't seen the second one, so that'll definitely be Gary.
There you go. So so it starts out, we are a year later, and it's around Halloween again.
October 28th, 1984.
1984. It starts out in Pittsburgh, and we get a little, I guess, a robbery. I don't know. What did they rob? An apartment building or something?
But it was see what it was. Yeah.
But it was it was the one thing I was missing from, all the 80s nostalgia is, where were the punk rockers? And we got our punk rockers, which was great. Which,
that opening, now I come back to think about, because we were talking about how this, all encompasses different movies from the 80s. That opening is actually Terminator. It's the car chase scene. It's the car chase of the Terminator chasing Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw that in. It can even be the Bill Paxton punk rocker throwback. The guy with the mohawk. You could also think Return of the Living Dead. I was thinking a little bit with the punk rockers from Return of the Living Dead, which came out in '84. Great soundtrack, great zombie movie, freaking awesome. And we get a little chase scene, and we get to meet number 8, who was Kali. And in the chase scene, she just she basically projects an image into one of the cops' head of a bridge coming down, and it makes him stop. So her powers are obviously way more advanced than 11's, and this just drops the nugget that there were, well, obviously 10 before her, and we really didn't know what happened to those 10. So my first question is, do you think they're all female?
I think so.
I think so too.
And I also think that the Duffer Brothers are big X-Men fans.
Well, again, if we're talking about like 80s nostalgia, this is when the X-Men absolutely blew up. They blew up in the early 80s. Well, they are X-Men fans. They mentioned X-Men 134 in the first season. And it's definitely, it's also definitely got an X-Men feel to it.
Yes.
Actually, we're recapping The Gifted, and there's definitely some parallels in that.
It's strong parallels. That was the one thing I was really struck by this first episode, that they were just all in out going X-Men on this, and I was like, wow. And with the 80s nostalgia movies, but very heavy X-Men vibe. I'm like, I wonder if they might be trying to parlay this into an X-Men movie directorial thing later on. That might be something that they're going for.
Yes. If they were going to take over the X-Men franchise completely, I would have Fox hand them the keys right now.
Yep.
That would be completely okay with me.
And with this cast too, just bringing in some of the casts that they already have.
Well, we were just talking about in the Gifted recap, if you didn't see it, go see it or don't. That's cool. Kid actors, I'm like, we are not harsh on kid actors here because they're kid actors. And these kids are phenomenal, man. They are so freaking good. Convincing. There was a couple of crying scenes. Remember when kids like could never cry? Like they had to use onions or something. It's freaking amazing. So we get that little scene. We find out there's number 8. We roll in the credits and we get this. Oh my God, the great music. The music. I mean, the music makes this. Okay, it's very John Carpenter, like I said, and it's you and I, we lived through the 80s. We lived through these times. We watched all. In '84, I was 14, and I can, especially a lot of throwbacks, especially 80s stuff. Recently, when you look at movies, they get the 80s mixed up and they don't realize there's distinct stages in the 80s. Okay. And they're like 87 is completely different from 84.
Yep.
The music scene, and music drove everything. Okay. That's what kids were into. It was arcade games and music, and music came first. It was the king. That's what you were defined by what music you listened to. And if you were a comic book nerd, we were ostracized. And, like when I started getting cool, and I wasn't, believe me, I used to have to hide my comics. I would not tell anybody that I read comics. I would do it in secret. Okay. I would sneak to the comic shop, and it just happened. Once I started getting interested in girls, I was like, I better hide this comic thing, which, you kids are lucky these days. You don't have to do that. Now it's all accepted. It's just
back in my day,
I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow to the comic book shop. So we get in and they go to an arcade and they're playing Dragon Slayer. And that is, for one, I totally echo oh my God, what is his name again? Dustin. Yes. Dragon Slayer was like the worst fucking game. I hated that game, dude. Yep. It was expensive. It played like crap. Everybody liked it because the graphics, which was just this weird animation that they programmed in. I don't know. I was still I was really into Joust. I was a Joust guy back then. So
yeah. I know I was playing Joust, Dig Dug. When they were talking about Dig Dug, I was like into that. I was like, yeah,
hell yeah.
That was my game.
And we had a friend named Doug. We called Dig Dug. He hated it. So in there, while we get to meet Max, we get to meet MADMAX. They first see that she had the high score. They were like, "Who's this? MADMAX character?"
Yeah, took over Dustin's high score on both Centipede and Dig Dug, which you don't.
Yes.
Because remember, having a high score on your local video game was a badge of honor.
It was. You were, and when you beat that high score, I mean, that person you beat would like have a sleepless night. It meant something. It mattered. I don't know. What was your arcade? Mine was Pinball Plus.
Donkey Kong.
No, the name of your arcade.
Oh, the name of the arcade that we had? Starcade, actually. It was the arcade that was right next to the movie theater.
Is it down at where's that? Down in
that was over. No, that was in Concord, believe it or not.
Oh, you were out in Concord back then. I was in San Diego. I was in Encinitas at the time. Good place to grow up. So they don't mess around. In the arcade, Will has his first vision, and we get Cthulhu, basically. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I guess it's the Demogorgon enlarged or something. We don't know what's going on. But Will has his first vision, and it seems like he's shifting into the upside down or somewhat in between it. We're not really sure at this point. Mm-hmm. And he sees a storm. Actually, the first vision he doesn't see that thing at all. As we see is the storm, and but as he walks out, like he's actually really walking out. So with it, what I got from the first vision, like he's having this vision, but I think he's kind of there.
Yeah, he's split between both worlds right now, and it's because he's got something he's carrying. He's carrying part of the upside down with him, and that's basically what, as he says later on, that whatever it is wants to kill everyone except for him. And the reason I think is because he's the portal. He's a new portal. As we saw in the first season, there's a portal to the upside down in the power plant. And we actually saw it again in this episode, too, that the portal is still there, but they're keeping it at bay by burning whatever comes through. So I think that Will is the new portal that they're trying to set up.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to interject that if we got any live watchers out there and you throw up some comments. We do the recap first, and then we'll go back and read your comments and respond to them. So we will be listening, I promise you. So your comment will not be in vain, or your question, or your criticism, whatever. It's all good. It's all good here. We're open to anything. And yeah, so that it seems like everybody's kind of gotten back to normal as much as they could.
Well, yeah, we know that Will's mom is very overprotective of him right now, obviously, because she doesn't want to lose him again. So Joyce has really kind of latched onto him, whereas Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, excuse me, are all riding their bikes to the arcade. Will gets driven there by his mom, and she says flat out, I'm going to be there back in 2 hours. That's 9 o'clock. If anything happens, just go and tell him you need to use the phone. And she's going on and on and on. Yeah. So
have we met Lucas's parents yet?
We did in the first season very briefly, because we met his sister. And excuse me, I take that back. Lucas, no, we have not.
I don't think we've seen. Now I
was confusing him with Mike for a second.
We do get to meet Dustin's mom.
Yes.
And Winona Ryder is playing. Joyce is she's playing such a good single mom, because being a single mom back then was not that easy. Okay. No. I had a lot of friends back then with the single moms, and it was a bit harder back then. Okay, times weren't as understanding, but it was not unheard of. It was quite frequent back then. So yeah, she's that frantic, semi-neurotic, but still kind of badass mom. She's Winona's. I love Winona Ryder. I mean, through her perils in Hollywood, she's turned into pretty good actress, and she's badass.
And David Harper as the sheriff, Jim Hopper. I love the whole thing of him coming in to the precinct, and his I guess you could call her secretary, if you will. He's smoking. She pulls the cigarette out of his mouth.
Puts an apple in his hand.
Yeah, he takes a donut, takes a bite out of a donut. She pulls a donut out of his hand, gives him an apple, and just all the stuff that she's trying to do to basically keep him healthy, because she knows he's not healthy at all. And it's really funny. It's a nice little. You know what? It's a throwback to the old '80s cop movies, if you will, where they have that kind of rapport, where you have a small town. I guess you could call her. She was a secretary, is what she was, because she wasn't a cop. She worked at the precinct at the front desk, basically taking calls. Wasn't even a dispatcher, really. But I guess she could have been. Yeah, she was a dispatcher, but still, she was taking care of him.
Well, in the '80s, okay, so they're shooting everything. I mean, their attention to detail is amazing. And in the late '70s and early '80s, filmmaking started getting more sophisticated. So when they used to break down when they used to do scenes in '50s and '60s movies, they didn't worry about details like a guy working in the background or a secretary handing you a cup of coffee and stuff. I mean, they did it a little bit in the '60s, but it wasn't that paid attention to. You were always focused on your main actor and what was happening right in front of you. And that's, a lot of directors started playing with authenticity back then and started bringing in fullness. And again, Coppola was doing this, and, but it started mainly in the '70s, but it really got perfected in the '80s, where you would have, these beats of acting. They were like, hey, chief, we got the phone over here, and da-da-da-da. And it would be like really, it would synchronize really nicely, and it would just look natural. And I remember watching that as a kid and seeing like movies grow, get better. And like, I'm telling you, man, from 77, 78 to 84, I mean, that was such a great time for movies. It's like, I don't think there'll ever be a better time for movies, as far as just quality and, pushing the envelope, original stories. There wasn't retreads, and a sequel was still a special thing. And they were adapting stuff, but I mean, Hollywood was just pumping out good stuff. And we weren't also, there wasn't 100 movies being released every year. It was probably like 50, maybe not even that. That might be a high number.
And you got to remember, Lucas, love him or hate him, he was the one that actually kind of started the prequel, if you will, back with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which actually takes place before Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if that was a prequel. I mean, technically it was, but it was, and I will hate him for that because I really don't like prequels. But I think it was more of I thought it was interesting way to do a sequel. Yes. It was just, let's do it a year before, because it doesn't matter with Indiana Jones and stuff. Back to Hop. David Harbour is going to be a huge star because of this now, and this is it's what we talked about. I forgot the actor's name. We were talking about it last podcast, and DB Wong. It was like DB Wong, like a guy who's been around forever. BD Wong with BD Wong, a guy who's been around forever. Has done just a bunch of character acting, but just never really gotten his chance. And he found his role, at late middle age, and he's Hellboy. I could see him being so much. I could see him being like, if anybody was ever going to recast like Indiana Jones, I could see David Harbour playing Indiana Jones, because David Harbour has what a lot of male actors don't have. Right? He's got like that old moxie. I mean, like a man's man, you know what I mean? But not in
Swagger.
He's just, I don't know. I've seen the guy in a million things, and they always cast him as like an evil government agent or an evil this or an evil that, and to flip the script on this guy and make him, like the tortured cop. He's been good in other stuff. Don't get me wrong, but this is like going to put him in the stuff.
I've also seen him as a milquetoast boyfriend and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Like, I don't think he's ever gotten, like, this is his chance to shine. And I absolutely love him in this. We also got Sean Astin playing playing with Bob the Brain. Is that what that was his nickname in high school? That's what Hop said. Quick story about Sean Astin. I'm not going to mention a name here, but he's got a half brother who Melissa and I used to party with pretty hard. Patty Duke Astin, who was Sean Astin's mom. I think she passed. Used to live in our neighborhood. Never saw Sean. I mean, he might have been around, but I never saw him. But his half brother was a skinhead. And dude, it was crazy. So it's still weird seeing, because he looks like him. He looks just like, we'll say his first name, David. He looks just like David. That's what seeing Sean Astin is like this little I don't want to use the word. It rhymes with muck. The little boyfriend, but he's nice, he's cool. And he works at RadioShack. Remember when RadioShack workers used to
dabble in all kinds of stuff? That's
make money.
Yeah, RadioShack used to be not this place that you go and buy really cheap shit that doesn't work. It actually used to be where it was like Fry's Electronics, where you had, even Fry's isn't what Fry's used to be, where you actually had equipment that you could build stuff with. You could go there and buy crystals, to plug into. You can make radios. You can do ham radio stuff. That's where you took your. There used to be TV repairman and radio repairman. You used to not buy a new one. You used to fix the one you had. Back in the day. Oh God, it was cheap. Old. Yeah, it was super cheap. Yeah, it was way cheaper to fix it. $25. Yeah,
you get your little manual, and because it was simple. I mean, if you crack open the back of something, you'll see how simple it was back then.
Yeah. Your tube's burned out. We'll change up the tube.
Didn't even need to solder anything that much. So we get more into we're caught up now, everybody. But like I said, they kind of get this thing moving real quick. They did get one extra episode. And now the only thing I'll say about the four, I'm 4 episodes in, and there was a point where I'm like, God, I don't think they're going to have enough time to finish this. But then they kick things in the gear. So it gets so much better. And this was a really good episode. So the episode's name was MADMAX, but we really didn't get much about her this episode. We saw that she's a girl who's really good at arcade games, and the boys were, and if I'm getting ahead of myself, please forgive me, but the boys were stalking her a little bit.
She even leaves them a note because she
leaves them a note
to stop following her, those creeps.
Now, she was really fast with that note, man, because she wrote that in like 3 seconds. So I don't know if they were like stalking her earlier in the day. Not too sure.
I'm pretty sure they were.
I also want to point out musically, like they're spot on. Only mistake I'm going to point out. Now, it couldn't be a mistake. It's just a soundtrack and everything, but you're trying to stay within the times. And I'm just going to show what. So they played Just Another Day by Oingo Boingo, which is a great song. It's actually on their last good album, not their best album, Dead Man's Party, but that didn't come out until 1985. Sorry everybody, but they missed a note on that one, but that's okay. That's what
that was.
Well, I mean, I see that with a lot of 80s movies. They'll be at 1984 and they'll play like Guns N' Roses or something like that. Like no. But they were pretty damn good with the rest of the music. Like of that time. I mean, I vividly remember that year. That was just that was the year it's like girls and junior high, and I wasn't a total dork. So yeah, just semi dork. So the movies that they mixed into this episode, what was that?
Oh, I was going to say, we also had Nancy and her boyfriend going to Barb's parents' house.
Oh yeah, justice for Barb.
Yeah, and you got to remember, Barb's parents still think that she ran away, and Nancy was the one that planted that story to them, and they go over there, and Barb's parents are getting ready to sell the house because they've hired a reporter from the Chicago Sun-Times,
who Hop talks to in the beginning of, but
yes,
yeah,
and this guy's really pretty much an ambulance chaser for the most part, if you will. He's a quack.
Yeah, it looks like, you know what, he plays like he actually believes it. It's not like he's just trying to like. I mean, he's still ripping him off, but he probably just actually believes that stuff. So but he's still a quack. And Hop is trying to push him off because he actually does in the beginning talk about a Russian girl, and that's the whole story that they used, that the Hawkins lab used to get away with all this stuff, was that it was the Russians. Yes. So this Russian girl was running around and she might have blown stuff up with her mind, and Hawk is just kind of blowing him off. But one of the cops almost lets go. Is that the guy who is that the girl who made that guy pee that one time? And he's like, shh, it's quiet, But yeah, they have to go over to that dinner and it's super freaking awkward. It was a good awkward scene, but it's sad, dude.
It's very sad. Yeah. Because they're selling their house so they can pay this reporter to find their daughter, and because who they think is still alive. Nancy knows that she's dead. She's seen the body, and you just got to feel for her because she actually breaks down in the bathroom, and they've got pictures of Barb all over the house.
Dude, in the bathroom. They have them in the bathroom. Yeah. And and it's giving them this false hope, and it's really effed up. And I love that they this is I'm sure they were going to do this anyway, but it's kind of meta, because you were aware that there was the whole Justice for Barb hashtag thing, which was which is funny. Some of the shirts on DeviantArt and stuff are hilarious, and it's messed up. I was thinking about that too. I was like, man, she got effed over, man. And of course she feels guilty because she bailed on her friend, which is a super every 80s teenage romantic comedy had that scene in it, like the friend leaves the nerdier friend behind or whatever. Just messed up. So yeah, she's got guilt on so many different levels, and she's told not to say anything. I mean, she can't. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really messed up. And then to know that they're selling the house, that makes it even just worse. Makes that guy a scumbag.
And it's kind of funny because Nancy, her boyfriend Steve, by the way, they're into each other, but at the same time, Nancy keeps talking to the older buyer's brother, and I don't know if there's still something there or not. She's talking to Jonathan,
Oh, it's your typical like 16 Candles. Again, here's your other 80s movie, just any John Hughes movie from back then. Mainly 16 Candles. That was my favorite one by him.
And he's kind of the outcast who likes Talking Heads. He reads Kurt Vonnegut. He doesn't have any friends.
See, I had friends, and I don't know, I wasn't crazy about the Talking Heads, but loved Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah, definitely Kurt Vonnegut. I was more of an Oingo Boingo guy. But the Talking Heads are good. They were good. Yeah, but he's the artist. He's the one who's going to hang out in art class and draw pictures of you and hang out in the back corner and never talk to you and
smoke out in the quad.
And smoke out in the quad. Yeah, totally. And that might not have been me at all. Following the woman I'm married to right now around for 2 years before I say anything. Yeah, it was pretty sad. Pretty sad. But again, I mean, like, it's even better this year. I mean, I'm starting to get like little flashbacks. That's how good the detail. I mean, just goddamn, the kitchen chairs in the last scene, which we'll get to. I don't want to ruin it, but the kitchen chairs. We have those kitchen chairs in my house. We thrifted them because they look like the ones that were Melissa and I. Our parents both had the same kitchen chairs back then, so we went out and thrifted them. It's so weird, and yeah, they thrifted really good for the show. I mean, it is spot on. You know, it's just down to the cars, everything. I mean, the hair, everything. And that's the kind of thing you can do with a relatively low budget, especially when you're thrifting stuff. This is a masterpiece of nostalgia. That's what I mean. And usually, you know, I think what was that? Ready Player One was supposed to be the nostalgia thing. And I know it's a big wave of it, and maybe the book started it, but I think Stranger Things beat it to the punch. To be honest,
Stranger Things totally beat it to the punch. I mean, I read Ready Player One. It is steeped in nostalgia, but not as much as what the movie is going to be. The video game in Ready Player One is just supposed to be based on the guy's experience, basically as he grew up, because he grew up in the 80s, who wrote that video game in Ready Player One. That's why it's packed full of 80s references. And I think Spielberg might be going a little overboard with it in the movie, but yeah.
He was there.
Yeah.
You know, he was. And I mean, Spielberg, you know how the 60s, the Beatles and the music scene paved the way, and that's the stamp on that generation and that time that our music, I mean, even though music was huge back then, for us it was Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Ghostbusters. I mean, that's how you're going to remember the 80s, you know, the early time of video games, the last, you know, decade before the internet. And yeah, but I mean, it wasn't the greatest time in the world either, people. Okay. Trust me. No. We were there. I would not want to go back. I like the internet. So
porn's a lot easier to come by.
So Hop finds a bunch of dead pumpkins, and it's a farmer thinking that another farmer poisoned them. And I mean, immediately we're thinking, oh crap, something's going on here. And they look like they're all like burnt and melted and like just
rotted.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of flies and it smells. And you know, the great thing. Okay. So aside from the nostalgia, the story and the acting are amazing, and they move the plot forward, and this thing moves at a perfect pace. Like, I don't get, you know, when there's the quiet scene between, what was his name? Steve and
Steve and Nancy
in the car, and he's like talking about the report. I mean, I'm not bored in that scene. I'll get, you know, I'm like a 12-year-old. Like, I get bored, you know, oh my God, it's romantic thing, you know, but no, I'm like into this stuff. Everything moves perfectly in this. And I'm interested in the actual story. Aside from all the candy you see, that's the nostalgia. It's actually got a really good story. It's a good X-Men story, but it's a good story. You know, it's pretty much, it feels like an escape, like somebody escaped from, you know, Xavier's school, you know, like, you know, or the Brotherhood. I don't know, you know.
And as Hop is going through the cornfield, because he hears something out in the cornfield, you can hear something moving around out there. And so he's looking, and he comes across a scarecrow, which scares the hell out of him because it's in the cornfield. Yeah. And a bird, you know, crow comes out from there, and he kind of gives up and walks away. later on, when Dustin and Lucas are pedaling home after their stalking mission of Max, Dustin is in the driveway of his house, and he thinks his pet, I want to say it's his cat.
It's a cat, yeah.
Yeah. He's calling for the cat. He thinks it's there, and you can hear something like skittering around outside. And he's like, he shrugs and walks inside. That's when we see the garbage can like shake violently with the same kind of sound of what we heard out in the cornfield. So I'm thinking that whatever Will has coughed up at the end of season 1 has grown up a little bit, and there might be more than just one of them.
Yeah, there might be. And that was a great cut scene too, to the Jiffy Pop and the video camera, and right. And then Will's mom, she was making they're making Ghostbusters costumes, which were really good. I don't remember ever seeing a Ghostbusters costume that good back then. There was the really bad plastic vinyl ones that they sold, which just had like this horrible backpack. I mean, go on eBay and take a look at them. That's the only ones I kind of remember. That was like what was it, 40? I wasn't trick-or-treating. I was 14. I quit when I was 12. I was partying back then. So and as we get to the end of the episode, we're thinking, crap, we haven't heard a peep out of Elle. Now we get a scene with Mike where he's on he's on the little walkie-talkie, and they keep wondering why he's on this different channel. Remember, they for a couple times are all, Mike, why are you on this channel? And Mike is, calling for Elle, just give me a sign. And he puts the walkie-talkie down, and then we hear Elle's voice real quick. And then it's Lucas going, so they make it sound like Dustin. It could have been Dustin. It could have been Dustin, or it could have been Elle. It did sound like Elle. It sounded like
Elle, because she actually says, help me, Mike.
Yeah. So, we get to the end of the episode, and we see, Hop is going home, and he's like stepping over a tripwire. And I don't know. As soon as he did a secret knock, I knew that we were going to see Elle, and we saw Elle, and he's been taking care of Elle, which was just like, it was the coolest way to end the episode. And we had been like waiting for that moment since last season. I loved how they ended last season. I loved how they didn't end last season like they ended this episode, which I'm sure they were tempted to do. But I'm glad that it ended up this way. And it was a really sweet scene. It got a little out of my wife and everything. And yeah, it was a cool scene. They're eating, and he gets on her for eating the Eggo first before dinner. And it's like, and then you're thinking about, he lost his daughter, and this is all going to be great and stuff. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's the first episode. I don't know, man. And then, you think, and I got to thinking after this episode, and we have a lot of episodes to go, but this just hit me after watching the first one, was like, what if they pull an It with this? Like, what if they do like 1, 2, 3 seasons in the 80s, and then they do a couple seasons now? That would be kind of crazy.
That'd be interesting.
Good. I mean, I think the nostalgia thing would play out a little bit too much. Maybe you could jump ahead to the 90s. I don't know. That'd be I think it would be awesome if you did it, and if you pulled everything to now. Like, you do your little story arc back in the 80s, and then, I mean, they could go a lot of ways with this.
Or you could just jump to the 2000s, just jump 20 years.
Or you could follow. I mean, there's 9 other ones to follow. There's so many ways to go. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself on this one, but that just popped into my head. that would be really, really cool.
And so, also, when you were mentioning, that this is the first episode, and how they're like, he's found some. I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think Hop's going to survive this season.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I don't know. I was kind of wondering that too. Especially if his acting career is going to be taking off. But the thing is, these Netflix shows don't take a lot of time. That's why you're seeing so many other TV shows following the BBC model of just doing 10, 13, 15 episodes, because you don't have actors locked down forever. And, That's why you had the divide between TV actors and movie actors, and you're going to see that divide. Like that's not going to be a divide anymore. It's just not, especially if actors want to work these days, they're going to have to work in TV.
Oh yeah.
It's the future, kids. So yeah, I do. So you are predicting a Hop death?
I'm predicting Hop is going to die. He's probably going to sacrifice himself at some point. And that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Do you think let's go some other death predictions here? Do you think we were pretty death free except for some bad guys last year? Do you think one of the kids would die this year?
If anything, it's going to be Steve, Nancy's boyfriend.
Oh, one of the teenagers.
Yeah. Or because I don't think Max's brother is going to eat it.
Yeah, he seems like he's set up to die just because they're making him to be a dick. Unless they want to flip the script on that one, and kind of do what they did with Steve last year. Where he came off as like a douchebag, but he turned out to be an okay douchebag. A nice douchebag.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you think we're going to see number 8 play into this?
Oh yeah,
in the future. Okay.
Definitely. I mean, because they would introduce her just to kind of say, okay, well, there have been others before. I think we're actually going to have a whole slew of girls coming in. We're probably going to see 8. We're probably going to see 10. We might even see some earlier ones.
Yeah. Most definitely. So the movies that they called back to, and this is just what I found off the top of my head in this episode, was not necessarily in any order. 16 Candles, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Children of the Corn. Okay, Lost Boys. Now follow me on this one. Lost Boys are Mike's parents. Okay, Mike's parents look like the mom looks like the mom from Lost Boys, and the dad looks like the vampire from Lost Boys a little bit. Just a little callback there. Poltergeist and I think that's I'm missing one. And Children of the Corn. Okay, what I'm talking about is like not like showing something. I'm talking about like an action or a feel.
Yeah, an action was okay. So Mike picks up the Millennium Falcon because he's boxing up toys that his mom's given away, and then he goes to the walkie-talkie to go and talk to 11. And when 11 says, "Help me, Mike," that's your
help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, I can buy that. And I love the fact that they show a mom making a kid get rid of toys. Which is the reason comic book stores exist, was all those moms back in the 80s. Thank you very much. Excellent. And then also I don't, before we go, we got to talk about, I forgot a scene we got to talk about, and there's a huge scene with Paul Reiser. So
Dr. Owens.
Will has to go see Dr. Owens, and apparently he's seeing somebody at the Hawkins Institute to talk about what these visions he's having, and he's had 2 within the last month. Now, Paul Reiser doesn't come off as evil or anything. He just just normal. He just comes off as normal. I don't know how to read him right now. Maybe he actually is a doctor trying to help. But
no, that whole scene where he goes.
Let's walk through this first, Dennis. Okay, follow me here. So at first he just comes off as like, yeah, he works in the Hawkins lab, so I'm suspicious, of course. But I mean, like, really, I don't find him. I don't find him. But so Will is talking to him about like these feelings he has, and this is where it gets creepy. Will's like, it's just I don't hear anything. I'm just feeling evil. And basically, and he's all, evil, huh? And what's it want to do? It wants to kill. It wants to kill you? No, everyone. And right again, you can't read Paul Reiser. He actually looked concerned, but with Matthew Modine's character, he looked like the mustache twirling villain.
Yeah, he looked like an asshole.
Like, and I know they're trying to play Paul Reiser off as not that villain, but even when they went downstairs, so they go downstairs after they let Will go, and Joyce is like, this guy just asked me to trust him. Like, how in the hell am I supposed to do that? And Hop's like, you know what? If there's anything ever happens, just call me first. So then, what was the doctor's name? Dr. Owens, you said?
Dr. Owens, yes.
They go back downstairs and you see the portal, and it's getting just bigger. There's nothing. So what they're doing is they're burning the tentacles, and these tentacles and all the slime remind me of Poltergeist. It reminds me of just one scene in Poltergeist where there was like little tentacles coming out and stuff. So they haven't stopped this thing at all. It's growing constantly, and they're just at that one opening. And do they know about the other openings? Because there are other openings, right?
Yeah, I don't think they do.
No. So they just burn those away, and that's where we're at. So yeah, sorry to jump around on that one. And then we end with Hop with 11. So it was I don't know, what'd you think of the episode?
For me also, I just want to go back to Dr. Owens. The whole thing with him asking about, what's your favorite candy? What's your desert island must have candy, when he's talking to Will about this stuff. And that right there got to me, and like, he's a bad guy. It was just the way he kept like harping on one thing and fixating on something to kind of keep Will's mind off of what he was doing. And that to me screamed bad guy. I don't know why it did.
Really? Yeah, it just sounded like a guy trying to be friendly to a kid.
He just sounded creepy. He didn't sound like he was trying to be friendly.
I'm not getting the creep vibe off him, but maybe that's because it's Paul Reiser,
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe it's just I don't trust Paul Reiser.
I like how they brought him in, and I think that's really interesting casting. But no, it was. I thought it was a pretty good episode. Not sure what Max had to play with it other than the name, but we'll find out. What do you think is up with her?
We know she's from California. We know she's a skateboarder, and we know she can kick ass on video games. That's pretty much all I got. She might be, maybe she's number 10.
Yeah, I'm thinking she's involved in this somehow. Maybe not, but that's what I'm thinking right now. And I'm curious to find out what city she's from, because I think I know. I think I heard it. And she might be from the city you're in right now.
San Diego.
San Diego. Yeah, my hometown. All right, man. So overall, you thought it was a pretty good episode?
Yeah, it was fun. It was good. It had some good nostalgia stuff going on too, and that whole arcade scene, dude. That was a flashback for me.
That was just great, man. That was just great, and it feels like it hasn't missed a beat. When we do these recaps, we don't we watch the show. We don't hear what anybody else is saying. I don't care what anybody else is saying. I stay off the internet. I'll read your comments, and that's it. And I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I don't know what anybody else thinks, nor do I care.
I also want to throw in,
critics, not you guys. I care what you guys think.
Keith, the video arcade manager. Dude, he was completely like, they just plucked him out of the past and just brought
they went back into a time machine and picked out a kid from the 80s, and
and then also Tina's Halloween bash that she's handing out the flyers for, and the come and get sheet faced.
Yes.
That was just a bad pun, but you know what?
Thanks.
It made me laugh.
Putra says, nice collection. I said thank you. All right, well, that's going to be it for now. This will roll over into a regular video, so if you don't want to get in the live chat, go ahead, leave some comments if you want. We have no idea. Again, these Netflix things, we don't have a ton of luck with these things on recaps as far as views, but that's okay. No big deal. We also do other shows. We recap Star Trek Discovery, and we recap The Gifted and Mr. Robot. And we're going to be doing every episode of Stranger Things individually. We might drop the first 2 recaps right away, and then we're going to do it every other couple days. Please pay attention to our Twitter feed, which is @Nerdrotics, or our Facebook page, which is Nerdrotic Podcast. That's where we'll announce all our times. We always do these live. We do not pre-record our recaps. We like to do it this early. We like to do it off the cuff. Okay.
Definitely not scripted.
Yes. We are no teleprompter. Well, here's my teleprompter right here. That's it. Just a few notes, and we go off the cuff. And it works so far. We don't have time to do all that other stuff. So, Dennis. So Dennis has Twitter. It's @DeForce. All of our podcasts and videos are at nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe and ring the bell. We value your time. All we want is your undying love. All of our links will be in the description once this flips over to a video. And we look forward to seeing you at the next recap. Take us out, Dennis.
Hey, do we have any viewer comments by any chance? Or
no, we don't.
It's just the one. Okay.
No, we don't.
Then
hence, that's why I'm ending the podcast.
All right. Then don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, America.
And may the small folks sing songs of your greatness. See you next time.
Night.